What's up, folks? This is Justin Garcia, a.k.a. Master Chim, and sharing the screen with me, I have my compadre, White Boy Pat Patrick Kelly.
What's up?
And welcome to another episode of Pressure Project Radio. I went a little Spanish on you.
That's good, compadre.
ThePressureProject.com is our website. Info@ThePressureProject.com is our contact email. TheWarriorProject.com is our membership site. Check it out. So, got a bunch of things going on this week, as usual. So this service that I'm using was in its beta for a while, and it's not anymore.
Really?
So they better fucking step it up. No more freebies being handed out now.
Square your shit.
Square your shit, people. All right, so on watching right now, okay, good. The comments just popped up for me. We got Big Carl, Mike Davis, Carlos, Andrew, Monks, Casey, Chris. What's going on? We got David, Sophia, Brian Wilton, my man. All right, good. We're back up. So I'm assuming, I'm working under the assumption that this is going to happen multiple times during these next few hours. So just understand, until we do an official send-off, we will always be back, even if it takes 5-10 minutes to do so. What's up, James? Big James down in Texas. All right, so what the hell was I talking about before I was so rude?
We were talking about man codes.
Right, so we got some man codes prepared for later. We have some topics to discuss. I have a question that I was asked by a listener. Now, I'll be honest with you, most of the times now when I get questions sent to me, if they're, not like, sometimes people, what's the difference between tribe and just a group of people that want to hang out? Like, I get stupid questions like that. And, well, it's not particularly a stupid question, but it's my example of a stupid question. A lot of times I just, it's already so prevalent in everything that we do. It's just reiterating the obvious almost.
Yeah. Master Chim, I have this fungus on my foot. What should I do?
Yeah, well, we got this other fucking guy. I'm in the staff meeting, what was it, yesterday, and I get a message from one of my students. Master Chim, you ever have hemorrhoids? Because and I'm like, it's not fucking Dr. Chim. I appreciate you're sharing this stuff with me. You're looking to me for guidance. But hemorrhoids, if there is a line, that's on the other fucking side of it.
Yes.
But a lot of times when I get questions, I do not answer them on this public show. I answer them, on the Monday Manversation on the Warrior Project page, which is the private page for members. But occasionally, it is good to give some feedback because I think there are bigger topics that we can discuss. One of the big differences between what I do publicly and what I do behind the Warrior Project is, the Warrior Project is filled with people that I'm actually trying to invest in. Whereas the public content is me time-stamping a lot of my material, me creating a framework for a lot of what my own personal philosophies are, and also, to let people know that there's a Warrior Project.
Yeah.
So let's do that housekeeping now. Let's get that out there. TheWarriorProject.com is the website for the membership site. And when you are a member of the Warrior Project, you are not only able to access the private Facebook page, of which I am much more engaged than I am the Master Chim page or any other page that I have on Facebook, but you also have access to the site, the members site. In the members site, we have, it's got to be, I don't know how many hundreds of hours of content is there. Our first podcast episode ever is there, and everything since then. So the entire library, catalog, if you will, of the Pressure Project is there available, along with the power programs. The power programs are becoming very, very popular, which was the intention, so I'm glad that's working out. And basically what started out as, just an every once in a while, series that I decided to do and sell separately. Now what I've done is I put myself on a schedule where every month there's going to be a power program in the membership site, which means that there's just a page on the site you can go to and watch it. It's not like we just do it for a month and we pull it off, it stays there available. So when you do join, you'll be able to see, every single power program that we've put up so far.
The ever-growing library of power.
Yes, and it is growing because holy shit, we put the work in. So, All right. Now, what else do we got going on? I did have a question, which I kind of just went into the whole spiel for. So I get a message, all right, and this is from a gentleman who I'm not going to shout him out. There's so many specifics here. I don't want to shout him out. But basically, he sends a message. I'll read this little excerpt of his message.
Okay.
I've been following your page, and I'm very curious where your classes are located. I think you have something that I crave from the looks of it, which is very disciplined training. My instructor passed in it's a typo. He put 20,003.
From the future.
Which would be like 18,000 years from now, but pretty sure he meant 2003. And I haven't mustered the spiritual key up until today to reach out. These years have passed, and I seem to let go of my physical self. Guys, this is a real message, by the way. And as well as my spiritual health, I don't trust many when it comes to training. You seem to have what I've been missing. So this is a problem for some people, okay? First of all, you have absolutely no idea who I am. You have no idea what my classes are like. You have no idea. It is somewhat easily vetted, the level of my students, because I do have professional fighters. I fought professionally before. I've been a black belt in jiu-jitsu for a long time. But the whole thing is, where are your classes located? Because I have this humongously high standard for who I'm going to train with, and you seem like the guy. Well, if you literally Google Master Chim's address, it'll give you the location of my school. You'll know where the school is. If you go on the school's website, it'll tell you how to get in contact with the school. It'll tell you not only where we're located, but how to come in and try a class out. When you come in and try a class out, you'll sit down with one of the guys here, and they'll explain to you the different memberships. All the information is available to you. And I don't mean to just single out this one guy. Like I want to dress this one dude down for doing this stupid shit. It is actually representative of a much bigger issue with people today. And it's this sort of passive-aggressive, indirect, I'm really, really serious, but I haven't done all the serious shit up until now that I should have done because nobody will be there to see me do it, It's like how many, I look at Paul, Paul Grant, one of my MMA pros, he teaches a lot of times, 9 o'clock in the morning. And every day he's here like 7:30, 7:30. Not because he has to be. He's got to be here at 9 o'clock. Class teaches at 9. Get here at 9. But he's here every time, an hour and a half early. Why? He's lifting weights. He's hitting the bag. He's working out. He's drilling. We got the Adam takedown dummy. He's in there, running entries into takedowns for hours and hours and hours. Nobody's here to see him do it. His social media, by the way, is fucking horrible. Like, he doesn't put anything up. He does so much cool shit during the course of a regular day, But, there's something to be said for a guy who went from training absolutely no sports or definitely not combat sports when he joined here to being, a professional MMA fighter in the short span of time that he did. He's a brown belt, in my system. Everything that he does, nobody sees because he doesn't do it for people to see it. But nowadays, because of the explosion of social media, it seems like we can't do anything unless there's somebody there to like it, right? Unless there's somebody there to give us that feedback. Everything's become virtue signaling. So talking about his spiritual key and listen, you keep that big fucking mounted key to yourself, okay? I don't need you coming all the way over here. He says he's somewhere in the middle of the country. You got so much shit you need to square away before you ever come here and work on stuff with me, like, believe me, you're good for a long while, because just the fact that this was represented. Now, I will tell you, and I'm almost hesitant in saying this, but it'd be different if a dude showed up, took a trial class, joined, and ran into me in the hallway of the school. I was like, "Hey, Master Chim, how you doing? Yeah, I came here from Texas. I knew I wanted to train under you, and I'm staying at a hostel, you know, three blocks away, and I'm using my savings to train here." Like, I'd be like, "Oh shit," you know, like, "Hey, well, nice to meet you. You know, see you in class." You know, it is what it is. You know, but it's completely different, because he would be doing it because he wants to do it, not because he wants the attention and, you know, just the feedback. You know, the virtual signaling fucking feedback loop that everybody's caught in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. He's showing up. He's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a little bit of an echo.
Oh, I do?
I hear an echo of myself in your monitor.
Oh, so it's probably too loud?
Yeah.
You think? All right. So, all right, Ricardo shares here. Getting pumped for PressureCon 2. Got to see Augustus in DC last weekend. Yeah, Augustus
Awesome.
is he's not only speaking at PressureCon again, but he also, I think he's on, what's the guy's name? Gavin
McGinnis?
Gavin McGinnis. He's on the Gavin McGinnis show. I think today.
Happened or he's going to be?
I think he might be on it right now.
Oh, okay.
You know, but I saw earlier that he's on that show, and Gavin McGinnis has some great stuff. He's very, very entertaining dude, and but he's also, you know, he's got a lot more notoriety than most internet shows. Certainly more than the Pressure Project, because he has an entire, you know, the whole Rebel Media brand behind him. But my point being, I'm happy for Augustus that he's getting a bigger stage from which to speak. You know, now I don't know what's going to transpire when Augustus goes on Gavin McGinnis, because a lot of people who don't know Augustus, you know, they peg him for, you know, for either everything from this guy's a crazy guy that wants to overthrow the government to, you know, this guy is just kooky, you know, he ate a goat once or some shit. Like, everybody's got their thing, you know, about him. But, you know, Augustus is incredibly intelligent, incredibly sincere in what he's saying, and it's probably one of the more open-minded individuals I've spoken to, you know, who has invested himself in these much bigger issues, you know, that the country's facing. So yeah. pretty cool. Good for him that he's getting that. But PressureCon 2 is shit. We're what? 4 weeks away.
Yeah.
3 weeks away.
A little like July 21st. So.
Yeah, 4 weeks from Friday, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so 4 weeks away, a little over 4 weeks away, and shaping up to be an incredible experience. I'm very, very excited about, you know, the crew that is committed to coming so far. There's still some people that are sort of on the fence, trying to sort out some work shit, some travel shit. But you know, everybody that is going to PressureCon, you know, I really try to connect with them individually and help them sort their shit out to make it as a powerful experience as possible. One of the biggest reasons is because once we get there, and it starts on Friday, July 21st, you know, once we get there, I just want to worry about, you know, having the talks and going through the different, you know, presentations that we have planned and stuff, and it should be an incredible time.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
All right. Roberto, love the battle axe. Yep. One of my Danish war axes. It's, you know, it's funny. It's one of those things that every once in a while, instead of the mace that I have, I'll swing the axe because it really just feels cooler. There's really no other fucking reason. But when you start to swing one of those things around, you start to realize, you know, what type of fucking men had to carry those things, because they're fucking heavy. They require such an understanding of the movement, of the weight of it. It's not easy. It's not like a little fucking camping axe where you could just, you know, just fucking swing it. I got a couple on the wall over there I'm just going to grab, but you guys get the point. So what else is going on? Ricardo says, all we need to worry about is cooking that beast. Yeah, so we got my man Sam Stern showing up with another pig. We're going to do a pig roast. I also have something in the works in addition to that. You know, I'm always trying to make shit cool in the pressure con. You know, I don't want to get fucking – I'm going to go get a fucking $500 worth of cold cuts and bread and mustard and make sandwiches. Like, I don't want the experience to be that. So, you know, last year we had the pig roast, and this year we'll – you know, Sam Stern has said he's going to do the same thing, and he may have some other stuff too with it. And I have some stuff that I'm planning. I'm not saying it just in case it falls through. I'm not on the hook for it.
Got some stuff.
Got some stuff. It's going to make it pretty cool. But I'm definitely looking forward to it.
FreshCon was crushed. Last year was fucking great. This year is getting even better.
Last year, so of all the parts from last year, what do you think was your favorite?
I would say in between time, like the camaraderie and the conversations we had in between the presentations. Like you can't plan that, you can't script that. It's just a good experience just for that. Like there's times where I remember you had to be like, all right, guys, we got to do this fucking presentation. Now the presentations were fucking amazing, but the time in between, a lot of the times we're building some strong connections, and that's where like the brotherhood starts to form. That foundation, you know.
Right. It's funny too. Is Chad on right now? Chad Taylor?
I don't know.
I didn't see him. The one thing about the interface here I have in this program, I could see comments, but I can't see like when people join the show and stuff. But whatever.
I'll look through the lists. I'll see.
Yeah, he was here at PressureCon last year, and you know, he wound up sending me some books. You know, just a couple of weeks ago, he had mentioned, I think, in one of the live shows, I think maybe on, I don't know if it was this one or it, maybe it was on the Monday Manversation, because he's a member of the Warrior Project.
Yeah.
And he was like, hey, would you want a copy of these 2 books that I've been reading? So I was like, sure, you know, absolutely. Send them, you know, and eventually I'll read them. But I actually sent him a book, too. He should be getting either today or, you know, within the next few days. And, you know, the thing is, Chad's somebody who started off watching Pressure Project, eventually became a member of the Warrior Project, managed to make it work with a family vacation last year and make it to PressureCon.
Yeah.
And his wife and son, I think, were hanging out at one of the water parks up in the Poconos, which is close. And I think that's where they were. But the whole thing is, it was, you know, somebody who was just watching the podcast one day, the next day, you know, I consider him a friend and an integral part of what it is that we're doing, and to the point where, you know, we barter gifts and stuff, and it's pretty cool. My favorite part, Roberto asked, wish I could make it to this PressureCon. Is it every year? That's the plan. You know, the plan right now is to make it our, you know, big, you know, annual event. I like the fact that it's up in the Poconos. I think eventually, you know, this year I opened it up a little bit more, and as I started preparing for the event with that bigger number, I kind of shied away from it a little bit. You know, those of you that are on the all the mailing lists and been hearing me talk about PressureCon, you know, I was like, hey, you know what? I don't want to run at this point a level of event where I have to do that. You know, I didn't want PressureCon to be that for me.
Have a headset?
What's that?
I have the headset.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the headset and pyrotechnics, like coming out of the floor. You know, like so. Like I'm not into that. Like there's a point where I know I'm gonna have to scale it up or allow it to evolve. But right now, I really like the intimacy of the event. You know, and I just didn't want to have to be bothered about that. I wanted to go and enjoy this. You know, all this thing started out as a way for me to basically create a network of friendships and alliances that I didn't have to rely on, you know, society to make available to me.
Yeah, 100%.
Jamie asks, AMC, have you read, what's up, Jamie? Have you read Odin the One-Eyed God yet? Not yet. It's in the queue. It's definitely in the queue. Right now, I got to say, I'm probably at my most productive that I can ever remember. You guys know that I have every morning the Master Chim letter that goes out. I've been getting a lot of good feedback from it or for it. But if you guys are not aware of it, go to masterchim.com and it'll bring you to the page where you can actually sign up. You can put your email address in. And I send out an email every single morning. The majority of times, too, and I don't know if this is a good thing, I write it the morning of and then send it out. So, I don't have months and months of those things set up in some autoresponder sequence. I also have autoresponder sequence when you first log in, but you still get that. I usually send it 9 o'clock Eastern, which is, has gotten some great feedback. But as far as productivity, I'm sending those emails every single day. I've been putting some time in with this book that I'm writing, and I'm still, I've backtracked a little bit. And, I was talking to Tom the other day, and he said, you know what, I know what you're doing. He said, you're putting some stuff out, or writing it in the book, and then you want to add some other stuff, so you are going back and you're adding some stuff, and, you don't want to just finish something and put it out there because you're going to want to change or add to it later on. And that's not completely the case, but I would certainly say that in the process of writing, I find a lot of times that I'm taking so fucking long to do this that I have different formulas for presenting the information, and what I'm doing is going back and changing how I, phrase a lot of the information that I had already put down, because one of the things I want to do is, in the entirety of the book, speak in the same voice. I want the reader to be, listening to the same me the entire time, as opposed to, sometimes I get really abstract, and sometimes I write things and it's like, who's that guy whose eyes turn white in the Game of Thrones?
The three-eyed raven?
No, the kid. What are they called?
Bran.
Well, what are they called, those people that have that power?
Greenseer.
No.
Yeah, that's what he is now. He's Greenseer.
Well, what was before?
Warg.
A what?
Warg.
A warg? Right, a warg. So
I went too nerd. Fucking too fuck. I went so nerd that I had to go like.
Yeah, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. But a warg, that's what they called him on the show. Yeah, Mike Davis says the same thing, warg. And Sophia's laughing at you.
Yep.
Immediately laughing at you, not me.
That's fine. And, I enjoy that.
But sometimes when I read stuff that I'd written, I had to have my eyes white and be typing like this. I'm like, how the fuck was I writing that? It's not even fucking understandable. It's like you got a high in some fucking teepee somewhere or talking to some old dude with a leather face, and this is how he spoke because he barely spoke English. I don't fucking know. I get really, abstract, philosophical sometimes and confuse myself.
That's fine.
So I need to go back and do that. But anyway, the point was, I'm getting a lot of shit done. I'm getting a lot of shit done. All right. So what else?
We have a whole series of books planned too. They don't know it yet, but there's a whole list.
Yeah. Apparently I have to live forever because I got too much shit to do.
Yeah. Just take good notes. Your legacy will live on.
All right. Looking at all right. What else am I got? What else got going on, Pat? I don't fucking know. Say again?
How the power program for July will be, you said it's going to be the PressureCon footage, right?
No, the power program for July is actually, I got something planned. I have to learn how to package it. I want to be able to package it properly. But it's probably going to be some violence training. It's probably going to actually be a little bit of an instructional on how to hurt people and not their feelings. Every other power program is about that. But it's awesome. It's probably going to be a violence piece that I'm going to do. What specifically I'm going to do, because I want to be able to do it, in a way that, is consumable by everybody. I haven't nailed that down. I have a good idea of what I'm going to do. It's going to be a lot of chokes,
Cool.
and a lot of cool shit associated with that. But for those of you who don't know, in the past I've put out and sold instructional videos, jiu-jitsu / MMA instructional videos, and the big one that I put out was the Chim pass, which is a guard pass. If you don't know what it is, then it doesn't really matter. But the Chim pass, but it's something that that I'm known for, something that I do. I have a pretty deep understanding of, but it's very fucking sporty, fucking pajama point party bullshit. Sophia says on VHS. No, it wasn't that fucking long ago.
Actually, Betamax. It was released on Betamax.
No, it was the little disc that you put in and you just click the slides.
Fucking, that's funny.
Picture book. But yeah, so I enjoy doing instructionals, my point, the videos, and I think it'll be pretty cool and consumable. But that'll be for July, and August will have the PressureCon footage.
Cool. Listen, I would have got it done within a couple of days. I was ready. It's going to be like 12, 14 hours worth of footage, but I was ready to rock that shit and get it done before July 30th.
When we did that Chim Pass video, there was a point where we went up to New Rock, to Jungle Gym New Rock, and we recorded like 5 fucking DVDs in like 9 hours straight.
Yeah, we crushed it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. But this one will also be pretty cool, and again, included in the membership. My favorite part of PressureCon last year was Two on Tom's LOT talk. And, obviously I had a great time meeting everybody. There were a lot of, last year was the first time that, we took a lot of the names and faces we saw on Facebook for so long, and we actually met them in real life, shared meals with these guys, hung out by the fire. All of that was incredible. As far as the actual content, Two on Tom's LOT talk was my favorite. It's something that, like, I think if everybody on the planet watched, we'd be a better society for it.
I agree.
The SIOC LOT system, which Two on Tom, what that presentation was about. And for those of you that don't know, Tuhon is TUHON. It's a title in the SIOC Kali system, of which Pat and I are members. And Two on Tom, so Tuhon is almost like master, and the SIOC LOT system was developed by the recently passed Pomona Tuhon Chris SIOC, and it the easy way to look at it or explain it, and it doesn't really do it justice, but a lot of times, and I think Two on Tom mentioned this in the talk, people are like, oh, you just mean like logic and thinking critically, and it's so fucking more than that. And it's really the thing that allows people to use the logic that they developed. So certainly people need to square away their logic and their ability to think critically, and sort of progress critically through a process. But LOT is what allows people to do whatever process they have. If they don't have a logical process and haven't grasped or developed the ability to think critically, then no amount of LOT is going to help them. But the thing is, so many people think that sort of box is checked, once they are able to get a grasp on what logic is, they're just, oh, I'm good to go now. Yet we see every single day people making mistakes that they would advise their good friends to not make, yet they themselves make them, as an example. So the LOT part of the content was just incredible, absolutely incredible.
Yeah. His Blade talk was fucking awesome too.
Yeah, Blade, and that's like Blade talk. I remember he was like, "How long do you want it to be?" And I'm like a good 30 to 40 minutes. And I think we stopped it at like an hour and a half because Two on Tom doesn't give a fuck. He will sit there and remember, I was just talking about a couple of weeks ago. We had a 9-hour conversation. It was Two on Tom, me, Two on Bong Atienza, and Ethan, who plays a character based on Two on Tom, on a TV show. And the four of us sat and two on Tom's table, his dining room table. And for 9 hours, we had this epic fucking talk. You know, it's like at the end of it, I'm like, fuck, I wish we recorded that. But then I'm like, who the fuck's gonna sit down and watch a 9 hour conversation? You know, you had to be there, you know, but it was incredible.
Get a little guy to do the notes on it.
Right. It'll wind up costing me $1,000 fucking dollars.
9 hour notes. It's like, holy shit.
Ricardo says, I understand Tuan as proven teacher of teachers. Well, yeah, that brings my level of understanding better. Ricardo also has a pretty extensive background in Filipino martial arts, but pretty fucking epic, pretty epic. All right, this weekend, you and I are actually going to be at the Sama Sama, which is the annual SAYAC event. But we're also going to be running a special. So you guys know the running a special. So fucking cheesy. We're going to be incentivizing people to join the Warrior Project. And it's going to start this Friday, and it's going to go all the way through July 4th. And you guys know it's $47 a month to join the Warrior Project, and it's $497 for the year. What we're going to be doing, it's going to be $297 for those, what is it going to be, fucking 4 days, 5 days? It's going to start Friday. It's going to end, I think, when's July 4th? I think Tuesday, right? Tuesday. So from Friday to Tuesday, we're going to be running that 4th of July Independence Day discount on yearly memberships. So what that means is if you are not a member, you could join for a year for $297. If you're already a member, you can add time if you want. Some people already paid up for like the next 2-3 years because they've just, you know, some people believe in what we're doing, you know, and it's great to see. But I'm never really going to run a sale that people who are already members aren't going to have a part of. So, you know, one of the reasons I'm doing this is to obviously get new members into the site, to lower the barrier of entry for those people that are complaining, you know, well, listen, it's, you know, it's just I can't afford the $47 a month. I can't, you know, I don't believe any of that. But a lot of times I do believe that when they're saying it, they believe it. And it's pretty frustrating at times dealing with people who have no idea what investing in themselves actually means. But regardless, every once in a while I incentivize people who are action takers to do just that. So what wind up happening is we'll send out an email on the mailing list of a discount code, and you will go to sign up. You'll be able to put your code in. It'll reduce it from $497 to $297, and you'll be able to join for a year. Once you do join, it's important that you guys send us a message and let us know where you are on Facebook so we can add you to the group. There are a lot of members who do not want to be on the Facebook group because they feel they are so important that they must remain anonymous because the Emperor of the Galaxy is going to find them or something. I don't know. At this point, like I'm telling people, like I had one guy explain to me, a couple of guys in general, but one guy specifically, you know, listen, you know, I don't do social media because I don't want people to track my movement. It's like, all right, fucking 000, like you're gonna be okay if you join the site. You can just fucking make a fake page at this point, you know, and I've told people that too.
Make a fake page, change your privacy settings to not allow friends to be added, allow yourself to be added to groups, turn your location off.
Right. Like, it's really, I mean, and that's the thing. It's, you know, it adds to the cool factor when you're telling yourself, well, listen, I got to move anonymously. It's like, all right, well, learn how to do that. Because that's the other half of being really cool. You learn how to do the cool shit and still be able to function, you know? We had James said the power that was dropped on Monday was worth the price of admission alone. You know, I got to say, this last Monday Manifestation, even little guy was doing the show notes for it, and he was like, man, this is a great fucking episode. You know, and I'm really glad that everybody enjoyed it. But that's what we do, you know, on the Warrior Project every week. And for those of you that are there, that are able to see it, you know, more power to you. But
that gets archived on the membership site, so it's up there right now.
Right. So we have Ricardo says the Blade Talk was priceless. Yeah, a lot of people It's funny, but when we started training SIOC, we're running all these fucking templates, and we're training, we're drilling, we're doing all this stuff, and all the guys around us, in the school, in the jungle gym, see us doing this. And one of the things I've never done is sort of run a public SIOC class, because I'll be honest, like, I want you to be so vetted before I show you this shit, that I just refuse to have there to be, cut a check and join the class. Let me teach you how to be awesome and kill people, theoretically. But I remember when a lot of guys were buying blades. Like, everybody was obsessed with buying a blade, and it's like they're showing me, oh, I bought this one. It's like, yeah, that's for scaling fish. Or they're showing me this one, like, yeah, that's for fucking paring an apple. They're showing me
this one. They're like, that's a boat anchor.
Like, that one is going to take you 3 minutes to get out of your pocket and open. Like, basically, you'll be able to pull that blade out in time enough to finish yourself off from all the other blade marks that the guy who killed you fucking put in you, to make it go quicker. But the blade talk squares away all of that.
Yeah. My favorite is Tom's boat anchor. He's like, this is a good boat anchor.
Right. Yeah.
It's like the fancy, fucking thing that everyone loves. It's like, yeah, good boat anchor. That's what I use this for.
Right. But Carter says PressureCon is 3 solid days of Monday's talk taken to 11. Yeah, that's the
11.
That's the intention. And another factor that I always bring in is that we are limited in the extent to which we can have conversations nowadays. We see in the world now, especially in the U.S., we have this society that thinks free speech has some limit, and if we disagree with each other, how we disagree and why we disagree is actually a factor in our ability or right to disagree. And taking away all of those constraints allows us to really, really get into detailed conversations. And a lot of people still, whether they know it or not, the things that they're putting out on social media are very much a product of a process of engagement that they've become accustomed to. They'll say things because they'll get a reaction, and the reaction is sort of why they're saying it, not necessarily for the exchange of ideas and such. And a lot of times I'm fully convinced that people aren't even aware of it. The things that they share, the things that they say, what they comment on. I saw the other day there was I don't know why it was controversial. They basically made it controversial, but one of these UFC fighters got submitted.
Oh, okay.
And Michael
Chesnia?
Kesnia?
Yeah, like Chisella, Chesnia, some shit like that.
Whatever he is. Big Mikey.
Little Mikey.
Mikey from the UFC. He was fighting, and tough fucking dude. I've seen him fight on many occasions. Real tough dude. He was in a rear naked, and he wound up getting finished. The referee, Mario Yamasaki, who I first met 15 years ago, comes from a judo jiu-jitsu family, is like a 5th or 6th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu. He called the fight. He said, the choke was effectively done enough. And whatever, not the point.
Sure.
The whole thing was there was a controversy, and I had shared on my page, my personal page, the Justin Garcia page, that like, I don't understand why there was any controversy. It was a legitimate call, and Kenny Florian had posted, because he had went ham on the post fight, saying that it was bad, and like on, I think his Twitter, he was saying all this stuff. He basically thought it was a bad call. And I've known Kenny a long time, and I have no problem letting him know that he's wrong, right? So he had commented, and then somebody had posted after that. And again, it's not somebody being a dick or not somebody being whatever. He had liked Kenny's post and my buddy Sav, who's been on the podcast before, he had liked their posts and then said something like, Kenny and Sav exactly, like the word exactly. And I found it curious because, not a lot of people are tracking this because they just don't pay attention. It's my job to pay attention to how many different ways that people annoy me, right? So, why would you Facebook has the ability to like a post. To then write exactly right after it is redundant. But the thing is, when you like a post, you almost do it in a way that you are not going to get any acknowledgement for. So obviously Kenny Florian, I've known him for a long time, but he has a certain level of celebrity in the MMA world now, having been a UFC fighter and a very good UFC fighter, now, working as a commentator. And Sav, who is, has been a black belt for years, runs a very successful academy. He too has status in the jiu-jitsu community. So, and the person who wrote this, this isn't a personal attack on them because I don't think that this was, what he was aiming to do, but it's how social media has trained us how to interact. It is artificial. So if you think about it, somebody's writing something, you agree with it. So you press the like button. That represents you acknowledging to that individual, oh, okay, I support what you're saying. I'm on your side, giving you some positive feedback for that idea or communication, right? So that's what the like button is. But then it also allows you to comment. So when somebody comments in a manner that reiterates what the like feature is supposed to accomplish, you have to ask, well, why is that? And the whole thing is the level of feedback that they want. That's the difference between the two.
They want likes too.
Right. They want somebody to like their post, right? And maybe not even the person that they're addressing. They want some third party to like their post, But what winds up happening is we are convinced of how to deal with one another, and it's completely artificial. So this whole thing started about one of the reasons I like PressureCon, and PressureCon, we're a bunch of guys sitting around a fire, bullshitting. When you say something that's bullshit, you're going to be called out for it being bullshit. When you're saying something that's squared away, people are going to nod their head. That's where the like button, came from, But it's all real world organic communication. I always talk about how communication, I would venture to say 90% is nonverbal, And, one of the things that I've had to learn how to do as a business person, as a leader, as an instructor, as a salesman, I've had to learn how to counter the fact that, I look like some feral fucking animal that escaped from the woods somewhere. Because a lot of times, I go and I see people and I meet people and their first reaction is like, well, who the fuck is this guy? And I got to be over the top, real friendly, engaging. I have to study their body language and use, all the means that I know to connect with people to combat, the other communication that's going on, and it's something that, we've gotten away from as a society, this whole, actually communicating effectively and organically the way we've evolved to communicate, which is not primarily verbal, and, to go from, a physical communication to a verbal communication now to a technological communication. Like, think about how many times that, either you've sent somebody a text or they've sent you a text and the message or the sentiment of the text was completely lost because of the method that it was used,
Yeah, it happened.
It happens all the time. Like, I'd send a text message to somebody and, they would think I was mad at them, or they would think, that I was insulting them, or they would and it's like, no, you fucking idiot. And then I'll insult them and get annoyed with them. But the whole thing is, you have to understand the limits of what these types of communications are. If you're somebody who doesn't have real world interactions with people, you wind up being completely inept when it comes to speaking that language, speaking that communication. Look at my sons. My sons, one of the benefits of being homeschooled is that they didn't grow up having to sort of cater or navigate the current of social pressures, right? So if you think about, the more we bring people together, the more we get a interaction that is just simply a product of all these people being together, right? You talk about, you look at the urban ghettos in the country, oh, people are poor, that's why they do all this crime. People are poor, that's why there's all this, out of marriage, to having children. People are poor, that's why everybody's on drugs. People are poor, and they want to say poor, 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 poor. But when you look at, certain countries that live poorly, they don't have all those issues. Look at fucking Appalachia, white Appalachia. Like these are people who, still have all of the virtues that are inherent in the human species. How did we evolve? We evolved being, or how do we survive while we evolved? It was being a certain way, and there are still people that live that functional way. But you get enough people together, and navigating the social, intricacies of the group becomes the way that you operate. Like I have a lot of skills and talents and abilities that only work, in urban environments. Like I know how to walk through a really, really bad neighborhood at night and not get mugged and not get attacked, and not, like I know how to speak to somebody who's from the hood. I know how to speak to somebody who's, from an Ivy League academy. I know how to navigate a lot of different social circles, but a lot of it, once you remove, the artificial aquariums, a lot of it is fucking useless. And I realized that, years ago, which is why I started training, and all the other things that I did, because I realized I was a specialist. I was a big fish that was meant to be in an aquarium, and I would do well, but, throw me in the middle of the woods, what the fuck am I doing? Tell me that I got to go hunt or fish for my food, what am I doing? There's so many other things that I had to learn that are much more natural and much more functional, and all of it has to do is just acknowledging and realizing the limitations, getting back to what PressureCon was,
Yeah, specialization is for insects.
Right. Who's that? A Heinlein.
Yeah.
Read this one. This is from a Will Vafuth. Vafuth? I don't know. What do you say? Vafuth?
Vafuth.
All right. We'll read the rest of it better than that.
I'm going to go Vafuth and get rid of the H. All right. Sarcasm does not translate well in text messages. Vocal conversation depends on inflection, not just content to understand meaning. Some methods of communication lose that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you even see me, like, I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised in the Bronx. We talk a lot with our hands, right, in New York. And even now, like, every once in a while, you'll just see, like, fingers come in the frame because I'm doing this whole fucking thing. Because it's how I communicate, right? It's how I communicate. And it adds a lot more effectiveness when you do that. I saw the other day, this was completely unrelated, a Wu-Tang Clan concert, and there was some lady signing it, like in sign language.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, it's fucking hysterical. Because obviously, there's a lot of these. But, obviously she knew all the words to all the Wu-Tang songs. So she's basically singing along in sign language. But, I just found that whole fucking thing so weird. Because, like, who's the guy that goes to the concert, Like, what's that experience like to listen to Wu-Tang through sign language?
I don't know.
Like, you miss so much of what it is. Like, if you just think of the words, it's not the same thing, But I digress. So, what else is going on here? Big Doug says, needless to say, those vibes can't be picked up on over a text message. Absolutely. Oh, Will says Vafuth. One of the names of Odin translates as Wayfinder. Vafuth.
Awesome.
Vafuth. All right. Got it.
Did you watch
A
American
lot of
Gods
names.
finale?
What's that?
You finish American Gods season 1?
Yeah, so that was the last episode of season 1, right? The one
Yeah.
where he like went ham.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Pretty good.
Solid.
Doug says, I'm a strong believer in positive and negative energy and people projecting as a sort of unconscious means of communication. I agree. So here's the way I look at it, and I've articulated this before. I treat positive and negative energy the same way that you could conceptualize heat, heat and cold. Cold is the absence of heat, right? We like to think, or maybe we grow up, thinking that there is a cold substance, and there's a hot substance, and the hot substance we call heat, the cold substance we call cold. But when you learn, about what these things are, you really start to understand that it's just the presence of something and the absence of something. And when we talk about energy, to me, it's the same thing. Positive energy is anything that is sort of bringing us toward our mission, allowing something to achieve its identity, to follow its nature. Negative energy, what we call negative energy, is the absence of that. And a lot of times negative energy isn't somebody who is actively engaging in sabotage in some manner. Sometimes it's the guy that's not doing what everybody else is doing. There's times where everybody's joking, having a good time, and there's one guy who's just sitting there quietly. Well, everybody's aware of his presence, and without his participation, without his active adding to the energy of the experience, there is some part of our energy that's being dissipated and lost in the void of his presence.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in acknowledging that negative energy is, to me, anything that doesn't help the tribe. So sometimes being negative is just being present while doing nothing, just not participating. Other times, sure, it scales its way up all the way to sabotage, what we would call sabotage, All right, so we're coming on to the second hour of this week's episode of Pressure Project Radio. Just to let you guys know, remind you guys, we're here every Wednesday from noon to usually around 3 o'clock. And, it's very important that you guys know sometimes we get on and it's 12:10. Sometimes it's 12:15. We will be here every week, despite all the technological hurdles that seem to find us every single week that we do.
We overload the internet with power.
Right. So Will Vafuth writes, in runes, cold or absolute cold is represented by Isa. Isa is absolute stillness and stagnation, no movement, which is a great description, because that is, and I'm glad, this empowers how I described it. When we talk about the RPS formula, and we're going to get into the man codes in a second, but when we talk about the RPS formula, the ritual, the R component of it, is the exact opposite of what we would call stagnation, right, or stillness, what is represented by Isa. Having a mission allows us to sort of create the map, and the map is really just the collection of movements that we're supposed to pursue and perform. It's not people think, how can I phrase this? People think that having a mission is pursuing a timeline, and they treat it as the climb through a timeline. And I think that is a very rudimentary way to conceptualize that. I think people will eventually get to the point where if they develop an understanding, a relationship with this enough, they get to the point where they understand your journey, your mission is never more than the snapshot of what you are doing in the now. So if you think of a movie, right, a film,
Yeah.
a film is a series of frames. So you can look at the movie as, this journey, this abstract journey, that starts at the beginning and ends at the end of the film. But when you actually look at how that film is constructed, it's constructed with, I don't know, thousands, tens of thousands of frames. And
30 frames, 24 frames a second.
So each one of those frames represents a snapshot in time. Yet these snapshots, butted up together and collected, give the impression or allow us to see what these things actually construct. But the timeline is nothing more than the compass, right? That's what we should be looking for. When we look at it, only in that way, it's really, we're looking at it in a way that doesn't hold us to the level of accountability that produces function, that produces the highest level of function. That's why ritual is so important. What it is that we do, and that the fact that we need to do something in and of itself, that is how we construct these journeys. That's how we construct the pursuit of these missions. It's not, just focusing on a point in time that you will never see. All you will ever see is right now. How do I make that now? By performing the rituals that sort of compass leads me to. I hope that makes sense.
Makes sense.
All right. So let's get into the man codes. Cool. So I got another collection. I've been having fun with these. I got to admit, the feedback's been great. I love lists. Everybody loves lists.
Lists are good.
And I sent you these. What time did I send you these next 10?
You sent to me like 4 in the morning?
Like 4 in the morning. So I was up at 4 in the morning still.
As was I.
Yeah. You know what I just watched? I started watching on Netflix. They got another series called El Chapo, about El Chapo, the Mexican guy.
I saw it on there. I didn't watch it yet.
It's pretty good. I saw, apparently there's a whole season. But similar to the other one about Escobar. And pretty fucking good. First episode, and it's all in Spanish, but it's got subtitles and shit. But I was watching that, and I started watching. I watched the first half of The Magnificent Seven. I haven't seen that in a long time. Which is the original Magnificent Seven, made 1960, I believe, which is the movie that was based off of Kurosawa's The Seven Samurai. Seven Samurai was made in, I think, 1954. Magnificent Seven was 1960. And Magnificent Seven, Yul Brynner, Steve McQueen, pretty cool movie.
Did you see the new one?
The new one was, I watched it with the kids. They had a good time.
Sure. That's about all it's worth.
Like end of story,
Yep.
So let's get into the man codes.
Cool.
So we've got so far, or I've put out, should I type them? I'm playing.
The numbers, fine.
Right, I do the numbers. That's pretty good.
The guy puts in the notes typed out, fucking good enough.
Yeah. I just almost pressed end broadcast instead of the online text fucking thing.
Awesome.
I'm just thinking they should fucking fix that. There's this end broadcast button on this interface that I have that is right next to the on-screen update bar. Very easy to hit end broadcast. But then again, I think it double checks with you. So yeah, they probably thought it out. Anyway, so man codes. So we've done 20 so far, right? So we have 20. So this next one is 21, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's more.
But there's more.
Yeah, 21 through
30.
Yes. That's what I have.
Yeah, why are you making this weird? It's fucking pretty obvious.
I'm not making it weird. 21 to 30. I was saying
20 already. I got 10 more. It's 21 through 30. You're saying it like is he trying to tell me some shit?
No, I'm looking at it.
All right. So anyway, man codes. This is so pointless. So I'm going to put this up, but then it can't stay because I got to put the numbers. Right?
It looks cool.
Right. So it's man codes. Next one. Number 21, right?
21. Yeah, 21.
Number 21. Am I too loud on your monitor?
I don't think so.
Because
I have you really low.
But it's probably my voice on your monitor.
Let's see. I'll turn it down a little bit. How about now?
Testing. Testes. Nope, we're good to go. Are you frozen?
I'm not frozen.
How can you say you're not frozen? This making sense.
Anyway, I can see
number
myself.
21. You focus, motherfucker, Jesus.
All right, 21.
21.
Focus, motherfucker.
You're the bad guy to your enemies, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Bad guy, Rory Singer in the house. Frozen hearts, devoid of movement. Once again, number 21, you're the bad guy to your enemies, whether you like it or not. So what the fuck does that mean?
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is the impetus, the beginning stages, the first steps, if you will, of a man becoming a bitch. And I don't mean bitch as in a female dog, because female dogs are actually useful. I mean the man who is slowly becoming a weaker version of himself, a shell of what he was meant to be. I think when he starts worrying about how he is labeled by his enemies, he starts appeasing forces that by definition are designed to destroy him.
Yeah.
Right? So number 21, reading it again, you're the bad guy to your enemies, whether you like it or not. If you have an enemy, now remember, I define an enemy as somebody who is actively sabotaging your tribe's mission. It's not somebody that you used to hang out with and called you a dick once on social media. It's not the guy who, yeah, we used to be cool, but then he started smoking crack, so I can't really hang out with him now. You know, it's not something like that. It's somebody who may very well be in tribe. It's like, yeah, you know that guy's brother, Jimmy's brother. I think he fucking stole something from my house.
And we're back.
And we're back. Fucking people. Did I mention the service isn't fucking free anymore? Oh, yeah. Okay, so the whole thing, what the fuck was I talking about before?
We're talking about that you're always going to be the bad guy to your enemies.
Right, well, I was talking about something more specific than that, but that is the fucking man code. The fucking worst. So
you're talking about the guy who stole something. His friend,
right,
his brother stole something from your house.
You're getting closer now. You're getting closer. And the thing is, an enemy, it's very important that we understand what these terms mean. Because a lot of times I think we take for granted, the notion that, well, whatever we say, is everybody understands that, like, these words all represent the same things. It's almost like, if you think about currency, I take my US dollars and I go get a unit of currency from another country, and all these things are supposed to represent one unit of currency, right? Like we'll say dollar, but obviously, different names. But they're all different values, right? None of them are actually the same thing. And words are that way. And, when we say enemy, we mean enemy. We mean somebody who's actually trying to sabotage our mission. And it could be ex-tribe, meaning external, or in-tribe, internal. And it's important to understand that when you have an enemy, they are going to label you as being bad, because bad is a very relative term to their mission, right? If we think about, let's say, like, suicide vests. Like, suicide vests are bad for us, but there are some cultures where they're actually empowering, right? No pun intended, right? They are designed to allow them to pursue their mission. So it's very relative, these terms, good and bad. Nietzsche gets away from, Nietzsche. Somebody badmouthed Nietzsche on one of the memes that I shared. I didn't even bother commenting. I'm like, fuck this guy. It was a quote that I shared. He's like, great quote, but Nietzsche is a shit philosopher or something. It's like,
oh, thanks.
It's like, cool story, bro. All right, cool story, bro.
Did you see the Real Housewives of ISIS where they both show up to the party wearing the same suicide vest?
Yeah.
They get mad at each other.
It was pretty good.
Pretty fun.
But that's the thing, good and bad are very in-tribe, values and virtues. So if you cannot wrap your head around the fact that by definition your enemy is going to label you as bad, and you do not have the stomach to be able to handle that, then you are going to reduce yourself to one of those three roles, right? We talked about those in-between tribe roles. There's a certain type of person that wants in-tribe benefits from two conflicting sides of an issue. If you think of both sides of the battlefield, or both people, both sides of an argument, there's something to be said for somebody who wants not only to be uninvolved in a conflict, meaning not choose a side, but they also want in-tribe benefits from both sides. That's the kicker. It's one thing to just say, listen, that shit ain't got nothing to do with me. It's one thing to say that. It's another thing to go back and forth and sort of play the fence between two conflicting identities or tribes. And usually those people are merchants, politicians, or prostitutes, right? Yeah. Those are the roles that you're reduced to when you're trying to do that. So the whole thing is, by making sure that you understand your enemy is going to label you as bad, it allows you to avoid devolving into one of those roles, the politician, the merchant, or the prostitute, So that was 21, and that was probably the most epic one-man code adventure we've had, because holy shit, fucking technology sucks sometimes.
The technology was like, no man code for you. No soup for you, 1 year.
No soup for you. All right, we're on what, 22?
22. Just burning up the list.
Number 22. This one's a little simpler. So let me just read it. Have a daily power ritual. Have a daily power ritual. So the phrase, the philosophy, is pressure to power, right? You endure some pressure to gain power. That's the way it works. You got to put weight on the bar to get stronger. Everything that we do in terms of accomplishment is usually a product of the process that's based in pressure. At a minimum, pressure that reveals itself as discomfort, right? Well, if pressure to power is the model, having a daily power ritual is an acknowledgement of the success and value of that process, right? So if let's say I grew up broke, right? And one day I got to the point where I owned a home, and it had land, and I had acres of land in wilderness, and I can go in my yard and be connected to all these things that, let's just say that I had to endure a lot of pressure to be able to do this. So what I do is I go out in a daily, whenever I can, but in a daily way, I do some version of what going out to my yard and smelling the woods would be. Now, by the way, that's actually what I did, By the way, I'm not talking about a hypothetical. I'm talking about my life. I'm talking about being early on. I was just, I don't know who I was talking. It might have been my wife the other day. She and I were discussing, I never thought I was going to own a home. Now, mind you, when I was 13, I think my parents bought their first home. But I grew up in apartment buildings. I grew up, I thought I was going to be a fucking gangster or something. Like I thought anytime I was ever going to get paid, it was going to be an envelope or it was going to be a fucking roll of cash with a rubber band around it. Like I never thought I'd be getting checks and direct deposits and PayPal, transfers. And like I never thought that this was going to be my life. So the fact that I own a home now and I can go outside and walk through my woods, like that is an acknowledgement of that process. So every day, you need to have a reminder that, yeah, this process works. And it's different from a pressure ritual. Obviously, that'll be a man code eventually, right? Because that's also a piece of the puzzle. But it's important for every day that, that every day we remind ourselves repetitively, that the process works. And that's what a power ritual is. It's not necessarily the ritual that allows you to build the power. It's the ritual that reminds you that the process of building power actually works and that you have done it successfully. All right. So that's number 22.
Awesome.
Rory Singer says, you are a gangster. Thank you, Rory. Because, by the way, being called a gangster is still a compliment in my worldview. All right, this is a good one. Here I start with that shit. They're all good.
They're all good.
I like this one, though. Number 23. Number 23. 20. 20. 20. 23. Number 23. Sensitivity to physical pain is a weakness too. So, Tuan Tom has a great phrase. He says, whenever you die, it's because you were too weak to live. And it covers everybody, covers everything, covers every way that people die. Could be the guy that got shot. It could be the guy that got run over by a bus. It could be the guy that got cancer. It could be the guy that, was 120 years old and just fucking turned into dust and fell down the drain when he took a shower. There are a lot of different ways that, that we could. Pat's doing like some Max Headroom shit right now.
Yeah, I'm noticing that.
Are you, but I could still hear you, right?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm checking now to see what the hell's going on.
I'm going to,
I'm good now.
You're good?
Nope, still fucking Max Headroom. My connection's good.
It's Max Headroom, not Max Syndrome, whatever the fuck you just said.
Max Headroom. Headroom.
Anyway, stop distracting me, fucking robot. So when we look at the way that, we die, and, Tuan Tom's phrase of, whenever you die, it's because you're too weak to live. It's not meant, obviously, as an insult. It's not meant as some sort of criticism that, falls on some people and not others. It's really an acknowledgement of the fact that, no matter what we do, there's always more work to be done. So a great, way to look at that, I think, and remind ourselves of the state of affairs that we're all, exposed to, you're back, is to remind ourselves that physical pain is also a weakness. Now, a lot of us think, we get, enamored with the idea of our own power and, I'm so strong and I would never do that. And I would yeah, you sorted everything out.
You're the best.
Yeah, you're the best around. Nothing's ever going to bring you down. The problem with that is we can always go and do something physical that hurts. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out and have a pain ritual every day because some of you are not strong enough to do that yet. But having a reminder of what our limitations are, number one, and a reminder that there's always room to grow, there's always more rungs on the ladder, is never more evident than looking at how susceptible to physical pain we are. I think that you'll find that everybody, myself included, when I am not synced up with what matters, I'm achy, I'm this, I'm that. You know, it's funny because sometimes, like in the morning, I have so many old injuries and shit. I'm like the Tin Man getting out of bed, or for me, off the floor, or off the couch, or wherever I fell asleep. Wherever I fell asleep eventually. When I'm moving, it's like and I have this tendency, you know, because if I'm still half asleep, I'm not tracking it yet, where I'm almost like babying myself, or I'm moving slowly, and you know, I'm just trying to, and I start like almost complaining. I'm already adopting the physiology just thinking about it, where I'm like, oh, everything hurts, and then after a while, you know, I snap out of it. But a lot of times, not even consciously. You know, I have my morning rituals that I do that is designed to combat that. But a lot of times, I'm not saying, okay, stop being a bitch. What are you doing? But then there's other times where I am synced up with what matters, and I'm experiencing the same amount, if not more, physical discomfort, and it's a non-issue because I don't let it be. I don't give a fuck, you know. And a lot of times it's training, whether it's jiu-jitsu or sparring, and like if you guys have never sparred, and I mean, you know, just any type of striking sparring, whether it's stand-up sparring or like ground and pound stuff that we do in MMA schools, you know, if you've never done that, like every one of those strikes hurts. Every single one of them. Some more than others. Some actually damage you, right? But there's not one of them where you're like, oh, that felt good. None of them feel good. Every single one of them hurts. But what winds up happening when you are in the game of trying to hit him while he's hitting you, you know, trying to sort of navigate that exchange, how much those things hurt a lot of times just completely falls by the wayside, you know. So pain is something that, you know, we have to understand it's always available to us to remind us that there's still work to do, right? So, you know, it's not just, you know, I hate seeing these guys. I hate, very emotional. You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
I have a growing disdain for these people that, you know, they make a lot of money. Maybe they live in an exotic place, or, you know, the guys that, oh, look at me, I'm doing so well in my business, I'm flying to the other side of the world, or I just bought my fourth house, and, you know, I don't know how to decorate it. Like, you have this fucking sentiment that they're sharing, but you look at them and you know that, to use one of the phrases I used in a recent email, you know that they are nothing but a tall glass of bitch. You know that there is nothing powerful about them. They've accumulated things in their lives effectively. But you look at them and you're like, yeah, you know what? I will take that guy, pluck him in the wrong neighborhood in the South Bronx. He'll be dead in 6 hours. I will take that guy, throw him in the middle of the woods. He will be eaten by chipmunks, not even a bear. He will fucking inspire chipmunks to fucking kill him and eat him. That's how much of a bitch he is. And then there's other people who are killing it financially, who are killing it, you know, with everything that matters. But you look at them and you're like, I don't care where the fuck this guy is. He's going to be a crusher. You know, he's going to crush anything, because you just know that for him, you know, there isn't something that he hasn't exposed himself to. He's empowered the process in the most natural or universal of senses. It's not an accumulation of one thing over another. You know, to me, the guy that has accumulated all this merchandise but has absolutely no physical resilience is the same thing as the guy who is tough as nails but doesn't have money to feed his family. You know, yeah. They're all lacking the universal or the greater application of that virtue, you know. So that is
number 23.
That was 23. I think you froze again.
I'm not frozen on the feet.
Whatever. Next one.
Where am I?
24. Number 24. All right. Yeah, you're all fucking frozen shit. Anyway, doesn't matter. I can still hear you.
Cool.
All right. So number 24. Oh man, this is a good one.
Yes,
I
it
can't
is.
stop myself. Let me drink.
They're all good. This one's exceptionally good.
Read it for me, Patrick, please.
If money is your mission, whoever controls the money controls you.
God damn it. You will be a fucking whore to a pimp if your mission is money. I have learned this firsthand, by the way. I've had plenty of people try to pimp me.
Pimp MC, new TV show.
Top shelf fucking grade A beef right here. The thing is, money is a great scorekeeper sometimes. But accumulating money and having that be the sole metric, for the progress towards your mission, you'd have to think about it. Like, just logically for a second, I want to make more money. I want to make more money. I want to make more money. Well, if I literally gave you all the money, would all your problems go away? If I literally gave you all the money, what struggles would you still have? If you look at people who have more money than you, do all of their lives devoid of the issues that you think money will fix for you?
Yeah.
Or are all the rich people happy? Are all the rich people not on drugs? Are all the rich people in strong marriages? Are all the rich people raising, vibrant, resilient children? Are all the rich people healthy? So a lot of times, we are given or we define certain hurdles in our lives through the eyes of other people, through the eyes of what we're told, or through the eyes of a slave, right? My life is miserable. I need to make more money. Why? Because I don't have as much money as him. I don't have as much money as him. I want a nice car. He has a car. I want a nice car, a nicer car. I remember when I didn't buy my first car until I was, I think, 25, 26. And even then, the fucking thing was in my mother's name, and she was helping me pay for the fucking insurance. I just never even conceptualized that owning a car would be something that I would do. But then, fucking fast forward to a couple of years ago, I'm trading in probably my most favorite car ever.
The Honda Element.
Honda Element. Oh, man, Honda Element. I love that fucking car. It's a love affair. It's like my soulmate left me. But I traded her in, such a bastard I am, for a BMW. Why? Because BMWs are better than Honda Elements. Holy fuck, man. Now, that car was fast. Don't get me wrong. We used to take trips, and holy shit, I felt like I was in the Batmobile. But
yep, solid engine.
Yeah, but when all's said and done, there was a lot of fucking money that I accumulated that did absolutely nothing but sabotage my assessment of what actually mattered. So
sometimes money costs too much.
Yeah, it's great. Absolutely great saying. And, the thing is, there's nothing that matters that can be measured in money. There's no amount of money that you could assign to the relationship that one would have with their child. There's no amount of money. It's like, my marriage is failing. How much does it cost to fix it? Like, but people would look at that as, well, that's fucking retarded. Yes. But for some reason, you look at all your unhappiness and you think the same thing, And, what I stopped doing, and I admit it because so much of what I share is a product of my real world experience going through these things. There was a time where everything that I did was in pursuit of money. I used to run a business group, and the business group, I had some amazing people in. And I got to, I think, really do some great work empowering these people that were part of my business group. But then there were other people in the business group who I could not fucking stand. Who, if it was up to me, I'd show up at their fucking academy with a bat and leave them in a fucking pool of their own piss. Because I wouldn't have to hit them that much before they peed themselves. The thing is, I would ask myself, why the fuck am I doing this? Because the people that I was actually helping and I was doing good work with, were completely outshined by the negative, anxiety, anger, resentment that I was building up for these other people. So then what I told myself was like, why am I doing all this? I'm doing it for money, and now what I do is, you want some help, we'll set up a talk, we'll set up some online, coaching or consulting. And Rory Singer, president company excluded, I hope. You did good work for sure. Rory and his brother were obviously members of my group, and you guys were if everybody was like you guys, like I'd still be doing it gladly. But I think, Rory, the people I'm referring to, and it just became like, what am I doing? I'm orchestrating and designing, creating negative relationships, which didn't have to be negative. The thing is, when you talk about alliances, different levels of alliances, we all have people that we would die for, but then we have people that, maybe we go out and share a cup of coffee with. Then maybe we have people that when we see them, we say, what's up? We ask them how their family's doing. Then we have people where we just wave to, like there's different levels of what alliance can be. And what winds up happening is, in pursuit of money, you wind up scaling these people up to levels of alliance that where they don't belong. They
artificial.
And it's like, well, why am I doing this? Oh, this person's giving me $1,500 a month, so I'm going to deal with this bullshit. But now I'm somebody who's, like you couldn't pay me $1,500 a month to deal with that. It presented it in that way. It's like, hey, listen, I'm going to give you this amount of just anxiety and contempt and resentment and negative energy, and I'm going to pay you $1,600 or $1,500 a month to go through with that. I would say no, but that's exactly what was happening. Why? Because I was only tracking things by money. So money is a great metric to measure, progress, movement in certain areas. But if your mission is money, then you are going to be controlled by whomever controls the money, right? You will become a whore. A pimp will show up eventually, right?
Yep.
So that was 24.
24, solid.
Number 25. Number 25. Oh, man, this is a good one. Talk to death often. Talk to death often. So I shared a quote by something Yamamoto. He's the guy who wrote Hagakure, which is called the Book of the Samurai. And the quote, paraphrasing of course, is, a warrior should recommit himself to death daily. And I had one of the guys on the mat yesterday after training ask me what was that about. And basically it's, every day at some point, usually it's a component of my morning ritual where during my, my meditation, my sort of recentering, my refocusing that I'm doing on what my missions are at the time, what the overall mission is, I always remind myself that I am going to die one day. And the fact that I'm going to die one day is something that I accept. It's something that I understand is a part of life. It's something that I understand people around me who I care for are also going to be a part of. So when I talk to my children, I savor those exchanges. When I talk to allies, to brothers of mine, I savor and appreciate and are grateful for those exchanges. When I talk to my parents, I'm grateful for those exchanges. Why? Because I constantly remind myself that one day they will be on the other side of death's door. And I accept that. And I accept that the way that that is set up, the way that that is designed in our life is how we value these exchanges in the first place. It's a scarcity, really. It's why do I cherish these moments? Because I constantly remind myself that they are limited. They are finite. Nothing lasts forever, right? And number 25, talk to death daily is really my way of installing that into the rituals of who we are. Be reminded of what matters. We were just talking about money before. Like the old phrase is, hey, you can't take it with you. Despite what the Egyptians tried to fucking do.
They tried.
But to no avail. So talk to death daily.
You mean I'm going to die, MC?
Well, put it this way. One day, everything will stop.
Oh, shucks.
All right. So number 26. Number 26. This is almost a part B to the last one. But there is a distinction made between.
There is.
But number 26 is, you should have a list of things more important to you than your life. You should have a list of things that are more important to you than your life. So the last man code, did I share this? I didn't. I think I deleted it.
Which one?
Bam, number 26.
26.
So number 26, you should have a list of things more important to you that are more important to you than your life. In the last row, I said talk to death often. By talking to death often, we're reminded of the natural cycle of what life is. We are reminded that there is scarcity in every alliance that we have, whether it be with individuals, whether it be with the natural world, whether it be with yourself. This is going to end. And it's death that reminds you of that. And so death brings the value to all of those things. But in 26, it's a different approach to that same information, that same universal applied in a different way. You should have a list of things that are more important to you than your own life. Why? Because, like we said before, you are going to die one day. So if there is nothing to you more important than your own life, then you are rejecting the very nature of who and what you are. Nobody gets out of this alive, right? So if there is nothing more important to you than surviving forever, you are setting yourself up to fail. And if you are setting yourself up to fail, we can call you a failure. And if you fail at the things that you try to win, we call you a loser. So losers are the ones who have nothing that's more important to them than their own life. There's a great quote from the Havamal, that, of course, as much of a quote nut that I am.
Beaters spare their back, the coward dies many deaths, the hero only dies once.
Right. So it's basically the sentiment is very akin to the Braveheart speech, right? It's like, yeah, if you leave right now, you'll probably live, but one day, you'll be sitting on your deathbed, like a faggot. He didn't say that, but like a faggot, you're sitting there and you're going to be like, fuck, man, I'd give anything to go back there and fucking fight for what I knew, I believed in, for something I believed in.
Like the Crispin Day speech.
Right, same thing.
Those who lie in their beds will hold their manhoods cheap if they didn't fight with us on this day.
Right.
Solid.
And, it's an age-old wisdom that great men have always known. And, it needn't be as epic, when we're functionally applying it to how we live. But I think a great introduction, a great ritual is create a list of the things that are more important to you than your own life. My children, obviously, like every one of my children's life to me is more important than my own. I would give my life for my children in a heartbeat. You know?
Yep, only every time.
You know, and the whole thing is, you know, I had one of the guys ask me, you know, where this is related, you know, and then the children thing just reminded me of it. He said, MC, you know, you always talk about, you know, like if we got into a fight outside right now, you know, you would be ready to die with us because, you know, we're in your tribe. You know, but isn't that letting down your kids? Isn't that letting down your responsibilities? To which I asked him and replied, how much responsibility or how much loyalty or how much pain am I supposed to avoid in order to provide for my children? What I'm providing for my children, is that only materialistic to you? Do I not also provide them their virtue? Do I not provide for them an example of what virtue is? You know, do I not provide for them an example of how to be and how to live and what to hold important?
Yeah.
And what better way to do that than by, you know, explaining through my actions? So I've always said, you know, the two things that are important to me are a strong legacy and a good death. You know, that good death cannot be overlooked. You know, and there's so many times I see people die. A good friend of mine, certainly, you know, you became a friend of his too, a few years ago passed away in his sleep, right, in a heart attack. He had a heart attack when he was sleeping. And it's like, fuck, man. You know, I wish he would have had a better death than that. You know, great guy, just great man, like stood for great things. But that last fucking chapter is a doozy. You know, that climactic scene of the movie is pretty important, you know. And I'll give you another example. My wife came to me the other day. She goes, you know what your sons are telling me? So I said, what now? It's always going to be good. And they said that they won't, you know, they're not going to see me in the afterlife. And I said, well, why did they say that? And they said, you know, they call them mamai, which is, you know, Portuguese for mom. And they're like, Mai, you're not going to die in battle. You're not going to die like a warrior. You're just going to die a regular death. You're going to wind up in hell. I'm trying to die like a warrior. like pretty much letting them know, listen, you know, don't get mad when I'm not there because I got plans, you know.
That's awesome.
It's, you know, the thing is very early on, you know, I'm making sure they understand what matters. And life is just the mechanism that we use to be who we are, you know. And we shouldn't be reduced to somebody who's just looking to fight for another day no matter what, you know, no matter what the expense, right?
Yeah. Coward dies 1,000 deaths.
Right.
Brave man dies only once.
That's right. Number 27. Get that one, Pat.
Don't hold doors waiting for thank yous.
So good. Don't hold doors waiting for thank yous. So when you do something courteous, benevolent, nice, you should do it because doing it is a function of who you are. You should do it because it's a function of the rituals that you perform to bring you closer to your mission. There is, you know, I always talk about the holding the door example. There is a point where, you know, if I open the door and somebody happens to be walking through and I impede my progress in order to keep it open for them, I expect to thank you. But I expect to thank you because it's a product of me wanting to live in a certain type of society, right?
Yeah.
I want to remind this person that, by the way, People will hold doors more often for people if we say thank you. But when I hold the door, it's not for the thank you. And there's a distinction to be made there. Do the right thing because you are a person who does the right thing. Do the right thing because you're a person who sees the effects of being a certain way as being favorable, so you've committed yourself to being that way. If we are only looking to make slaves of other people, then we are really a master level slave. You are trying to be the slave that's in control. But a master's mind does things based on what brings him closer to his mission, not based on how it's going to affect the disparity of control between he and other people. So when I say don't hold doors waiting for thank yous, I'm saying if you are going to be a certain way, be that way because you think being that way is the way to be. Don't do it because you expect other people to cater to you as a result of it. Don't be courteous simply to manipulate those around you, because you lose the power of what virtue is. You lose the power of what courtesy is. I've always said manners is the poetry of society. When you look at people who have good manners, I pride myself in having good manners. It's not me sort of kowtowing to somebody's authority or me trying to have friends. I just look at, what is the most unsophisticated way to be, and how do I evolve into something where instead of just running on natural instincts and having no discipline, I run on natural instincts but apply it to the most discipline. I think during that process, we acquire the motivation to be courteous, to have manners, to be a certain way. I will hold the door for a lady. I will offer, I cannot ride on public transportation while a lady is standing and stay seated. I have to offer her my seat. It's one of the reasons I don't use public transportation, because I always need to sit down. But the thing is, I don't care who it is. If there is a lady standing, I will give my seat. Now, some women nowadays will become offended by that. I don't give a shit. I don't care. It's the way that I want to be. And I think if everybody was this way in the circles that I run, I think we would be better off for it. It doesn't mean that just because I am polite, please, thank you, I appreciate it, you're welcome. Just because I say these things don't mean that I won't break your fucking jaw if you do a break my jaw type of fucking move,
Be nice till it's time not to be nice.
Right, exactly right. Fucking good. Patrick Swayze, man, he had some shit. But that is number 27. Once again, don't hold doors waiting for thank yous. Okay. Almost hit the end broadcast button again. Let's go on to the next one.
28.
28. Number 28. Number 28 is a good one.
They're all really good.
In every killing, death was the weapon.
Yeah.
In every killing, death was the weapon. I am tired of hearing, guns kill, knives kill, automobiles kill, AIDS kills. But no. In all these cases, death is what got them, right? They were killed with death.
Yep.
I could shoot you or shoot at you, and you may live. I could stab you, you may live. I could hit you with a car, you may live. Magic Johnson is proof that you can live with AIDS.
Yeah.
AIDS, I know the whole fucking thing. Let's go with the fucking shtick. So the point of it being, when we look at accountability in our actions, there is a great push now more than ever to remove accountability from people's actions and to look at society or look at the universe, look at reality in a way that there are things that force us to make decisions. And there is nothing that is going to make you a decision that does not culminate in you making the decision. The dichotomy of existence is something that allows us to progress logically. In LOT, it plays a big role. Being able to look at predicaments and the way out and through these predicaments as being nothing more than a series of forks in the road, if you will. Well, people who want to blame guns, for deaths are the same people who will sell you the notion that they themselves are not accountable for certain actions of theirs. And the thing is, when you have people who fight vehemently to maintain our gun rights, as an example, because that's the best example, I would say, the most easily understood, most relevant nowadays.
Yeah, definitely.
The people who want to fight for those rights are not fighting just because they love guns, just because they're really dying to shoot somebody, as much as those things may or may not be true. The core of that fight is really maintaining the acknowledgement that we're all accountable for our actions. It's not the fucking gun. It's not the knife. It's when you want to use death against somebody, you will find a means for that to be used.
100%.
If I want to attack you with death,
you're going to find a way to do it.
I'm going to find that. Did I freeze again?
Just for a second, but you're good.
All right. Am I good? Can you hear me?
I can see you. I can hear you.
All right. So, if I'm going to find a way to do it. Now, different ways you can kill somebody. You can run them over. You could shoot them. You can hit them with an arrow. You can hit them in the head with a hammer.
In a box.
You could bury them alive. You can drown them. You could throw them off a roof. You could hang them
from a crane.
Right, you hang them from a crane. Right, like a fag in the Middle East. You can blow them up. Right. Let's go down that fucking rabbit hole now.
You can use text messages so they kill themselves.
There are so many ways that you could attack somebody with death. Right. To blame any one of those methods over the other is not only inaccurate, but it is completely removing accountability of the individual who's doing it. Not that I love seeing these attacks happen, but a very valuable thing about all these attacks happening in Europe right now is you're starting to see all the different ways that when people want to kill other people, they will get fucking creative in order to do it.
Find a way.
Crom says poison, right? Iocane, I'm sure of it. Right? Poison's another way. But the thing is, if I'm going to attack you with death, it's the intent that represents the fork in the road being chosen one over the other. It's not the tool, So number 28, in every killing, death was the weapon. Let's not get emotional over the tools or the means by which we applied it. It's the fact that we gave you a permanent case of the death.
100%.
Number 29.
29.
Oh, man. Great. So, we're just talking about the dichotomy of life, right? Our lives, our rituals, being nothing more than a sort of ongoing series of forks in the road.
Yeah.
Do I do this or do I do this? Do I do this or do I do this? And down to the finest, minutest detail in our lives, it's really just a series of those decisions being made. Well, number 29 says, when or where you feel you have no choice is a good measure of where your power is. So, you know, hey, smoke this crack. No, thank you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, yes, please. If you say so. Go to the store for me and rob it with this gun. No, thank you. Smoke this cigarette. No, thank you. Have a drink. No, thank you. Hey, let's fucking steal some Twinkies from the deli. Fucking up, right?
Hold my pocket. No,
it's like, no, thank you. But then you get to the point where it's like, hey, listen, you are 30 pounds overweight and your sugar is fucking out of whack. You got to go low carb and watch your eating. All right, no problem. But then you don't do it. Then you fall off the wagon. And there's a certain point where, we're the alcoholic, right? The alcoholic starts drinking and, I had no choice. I was at the bar and, like as soon as you hear somebody say, they had no choice, that is right about where their power ends. Right?
Yeah.
So even if it comes to the way you die, there's always a choice.
Always.
Now, you may not be able to control whether or not you are going to die. But please understand that is not the same thing. How you decide to be, how you decide to act in the most precarious of situations is always going to be your choice. And as soon as you say it isn't, is right where you are in a sort of land or at a depth that your power does not reach.
Yeah.
2 on Tom in the house. He says our character is nothing more than a collection of our habits. Habits are just decisions we make over and over.
Yes.
Power. And the person who says, well, I had no choice. They're the person who, and when you start being able to assess people, you start looking for the anomalies in people's characters, the anomalies in the way people conduct themselves, the inconsistencies, of their standards. These things come into play. I had no choice. You might say, well, it was inevitable. You might say I couldn't stop it. You might say I failed even though I tried. But the phrase I had no choice is saying, hey, it was the universe that made the decision for me. There was nothing I can do.
I'm just a volunteer.
Right. And what happens is you realize with this individual, there is not only a point where that occurs, but it's a point where he doesn't even realize that it's occurred. Like as soon as somebody tells me, if I have a guy coming in late, to work, let's say he was supposed to teach a class at 10 o'clock and he gets here at 10:10. And he says, I would have been here early, but, the bus, ran late or whatever, Maybe the first time I'm like, what, shit happens. But then I see the next time he comes in late and he's like, oh, the train, this and that. Eventually I'm going to say, you know what, you're not making the decisions necessary to be able to fulfill your obligations. The excuses or the idea or the argument that somehow these other factors were making decisions for you gets old very quickly. 2 on Tom says it comes down to decisions. We are our decisions. So work on how we do that better. And if you are making those excuses, you are not, and I'm adding that first part, he says, then you are not looking back far enough to see the decisions that mattered. A great application of this is, when we use the phrase, there are no victims, only volunteers. As soon as you say you are a victim, what you are doing, and this goes right along with this man code, what you're doing is taking away the power of that individual. She was victimized. She was raped. Is she retarded? No. Is she a child? No. Then why do you call her a victim when clearly she made the choices that led her there? Now, one of the big misunderstandings with situations like that, and Tuan Tom and I have gone into this in great detail, people for some reason think that there's some sort of blame game where the blame of some sort of misfortune is supposed to fall solely on one person's lap. Listen, if somebody raped a woman, the rapist, complete piece of shit, he's still a rapist. That is still bad, obviously. That is still wrong and comes with it all the consequences that it should. But it's not to say that the person he raped is completely absolved of any responsibility. A phrase that we use all the time is, hey, it takes two to tango. Right? Well, that is for every fucking rape ever. That is for every robbery ever. That is for every fight ever. That is for every interaction ever. Everybody has sort of, if you think of an event, a moment, whether it's a conflict, just a moment in time, think of it as the sort of summit on a mountain, right? And there's one person walking on one side of the mountain. There's another person walking on the other side of the mountain. Well, that event represents both of those people meeting at that summit. But one person had a path to get there. The other person had a path to get there.
Yeah.
Each path was constructed with the decisions of the individual. The girl, you decided to go out tonight. You decided to go out, not have a gun. You decided to go out, not have a gun, and go to a party. You decided to go out, not have a gun, go to a party and drink. You decided to go out, not have a gun, go to a party, drink, and then find yourself by yourself looking for a cab. You made all these different decisions. It does not absolve the guy who made the decision to rape you because of the opportunity that was there. But you cannot be so naive as to think that you did not play a part in constructing the opportunity. You didn't make the decision for him to rape you. That was his decision he had to make. But the opportunity that he reacted to was very much a part of what you yourself constructed. Now, why do you talk about this? You talk about this because if I say you didn't make those decisions, if I say no matter what happened, this would have happened to you, and it's not your fault at all, then how do I empower you to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
How do we discover the formulas and the protocols to become stronger as a group? We have to learn from our mistakes. Well, what is learning from our mistakes other than acknowledging that there were things where we went one way where we should have went the other in terms of the decisions?
Right? Yep, and growing stronger from that, learning from it.
Absolutely. So, when getting back to a number 29, when or where you feel you have no choice is a good measure of where your power is. And that could be where your logic is. It could be where your LOT is, right? Because your ability to critically think and your ability to use your critical thinking are two different things. And, it could be a reflection of where that is. The SIOC concept of frozen lake. Somebody having a frozen lake. Well, what is that? It's really having that one thing that you can't even see the danger that you're putting yourself in, which is why tribe is so important.
Yeah.
You may cherish something to a illogical, irrational level. And you think of that thing as being in the middle of a frozen lake. And here you are making your way to it, and you're telling yourself, well, I can make it, I can get it. I see the danger, but it's worth it. I'm going to be able to get it, when everyone around you is going, you're going to die. Like the lake is going to crack and you're going to die. So we describe those things that make us feel like we have no choice as being, our frozen lake, right? Rory, read this, Pat.
Sure. I might have missed some of this as I'm working and listening, but I can't agree with this in all situations. You can't say that the last example is the same as going out on a fifth date and having someone force themselves on someone else.
So this is a great distinction, or not distinction. It's a great example of how eventually emotion plays a role in our ability to look at a situation critically. So let's say it's the fifth date. Let's say it's the 15th date.
Yeah.
And the girl goes out with the guy, and the guy forces themselves on the girl. You'd have to ask yourself, okay, just from the time where the infraction occurred, right, the time where he's forcing himself on her, to the beginning of how this event began to construct itself, you would have to say that at no point in that process did she make a decision. That's what you'd have to say. You'd have to say, in addition to that, that there was nothing prior to the unfolding of these events that she could have done to avoid this eventually series of events unfolding. If I move to Somalia and I'm killed, I may have, let's say I lived there for 20 years.
20 years in Somalia.
At some point, somebody is going to be able to say, and validly, you know what? If he didn't move to Somalia, he probably wouldn't have died in Somalia. Somebody's going to be able to say that.
Yeah.
Now, were there instances where somebody else were making decisions that sort of affected me? Absolutely. But to say that the individual or the girl on the fifth date in this example had no say in any of the events that led up to that situation cannot be valid, right? And where people wind up getting confused with this is the absolution of the other person's accountability. It doesn't matter how much it's her fault or not. He still gets complete blame for his decisions, right? But when we look at the Pulse nightclub murder, right? One of the things, I had made a video when that came out, and the guy went in there and he killed up a whole bunch of people. And this is down in Orlando. It was about a year ago. And, I think actually Tuan Tom and I had a no victims, only volunteers talk based on that. And, emotions were high, which is worth acknowledging, which meant they weren't acting logically. They were operating very much on feels, right? It's like in an electric car that also runs on fuel. It's like supposed to run it with electricity, but you can run it on fuel if you have to, but it's not made for that. So you're actually going to sabotage the car if you just run it on fuel. Well, that's emotion and logic. We're meant to run on logic, but every once in a while we're running on emotions. But when that happened, we described, and the way that I put it was, now that this occurred, right, this heinous, terrible, all of that thing occurred, everybody is going to do things a little bit differently. Maybe they're going to get armed security. Maybe some people will stop going to those nightclubs. Maybe they'll install metal detectors. Maybe they'll change their identification process. Maybe whatever it is, both the club and the people who patronize the club, the people who go to those clubs, are going to do things differently. And one of the reasons they're going to do things differently is in the face of that attack, they're going to say, wait a minute, all these things are possible. Maybe they didn't realize these things were possible. Maybe they didn't realize a guy can go in there with a machine gun and fucking just blast everybody up. Maybe they didn't even realize that. But now they know it's possible because it happened, right? Best proof for something being possible, it happens. And because they now know it's possible, they're going to make certain changes to avoid that from happening again. Eventually, they're going to have to sort of reach that line, that threshold of, well, do I want to be at this level of avoidance of something like that happening? Because now this begins to sabotage my ability to lead my life, right? We say the difference between paranoia and preparation is function. If you are still functionally living, but you are trying to do everything you can to avoid, mishaps or negative happenings, we say that you are preparing, right? You are being prepared. But if you're doing it to a point where you can't function, we're saying you're being paranoid. But whatever the case is, whatever changes they make after the fact, the million-dollar question is, could they have made these changes before?
Yeah.
That's everything.
That's it.
So getting back to the girl on the 5th date who has somebody force herself upon her, let's say that we look at another girl who knows that girl and saw what winds up happening. And she says, well, that's never going to happen to me. Well, what is she going to do, in her estimation, to make sure that never happens to her? And I would contend those decisions that she would make were probably available to the girl who got attacked on the fifth date too.
100%. Exactly.
So now the problem is when somebody hears that and they go, yeah, but they don't know that somebody was going to molest them. They can't help that somebody, right. There were some things that they couldn't decide. But there was never a situation where no decisions were made by them, and it's really it's something that I've seen, and I've gone over this with a lot of people, and it is always emotion that really just makes them cling to wanting the spotlight to be on the attacker. I agree that the spotlight should be on the attacker. But all the blame for those two people meeting at that summit cannot fall on one person alone.
No.
Takes two to tango. It's from 2 on Tom. The philosophy is to empower people to make better decisions. Taking on this philosophy gives you mentally the avenue to become stronger. And this is the greater point of this that is missed on a lot of people. This isn't about saying, the girl that got raped, oh, fuck her, she deserved it. That's what you get for wearing a skirt. That's what you get for... This isn't a process by which to validate the consequences of people's actions as being virtuous or just. She deserved this. Good for her. That is a completely different assessment of what this process actually is. This process is nothing more than taking a look at what power we actually have and looking to leverage it to the best of our ability. There are going to be times where, you are not going to be able to avoid just the nature of events. Like if you're somebody who, I think of, my favorite show on TV right now, Life Below Zero, right? It profiles a bunch of families and individuals up in the Arctic in Alaska. There's this one couple, white guy, indigenous woman, Eskimo, a woman, and she says that I think her mother and like her sister-in-law or her mother and some other people at one point were ice fishing and fell into the ice and were lost under the ice and bodies never found. She's describing this while fishing on the ice. She's describing this while doing the same things, the same rituals that led to those people's deaths. So when we talk about function, she understands the inherent danger in the decisions she has made to continue with these rituals. Families got to eat. Ice fishing is a huge component of how they feed themselves. So despite the decisions or despite the inherent dangers of what ice fishing is, she makes the decision and acknowledges the decision that she will try and do the best she can to make this as safe as possible. But ultimately, she will bear the risk of what this activity brings because of the function it serves in her life. So now when we say, women shouldn't go, what are you saying? Women shouldn't go out on dates because there's rapists out there? No. What I'm saying is every single time a woman does go out on a date, she has to make the decision that in spite of the fact that there are women who get date raped, there are women who get drugged, there are women who get kidnapped, there are all these, bad people out there. Despite that, she's making a decision to pursue the functional ritual of courtship, right? Of dating, But the decision is hers. That is an empowering thing, to say that and to look at it that way. It's, it's quite the opposite. It's imagine, every time you go out to eat with one of your friends, you go to pay and he goes, no, I got it. Like, it happens once, it's courteous. I appreciate it. He's being polite, he's being generous. After a while, you want to look at him, if you have any fucking pride, which is part of it, you want to look at him and go, what do you think? I can't pay for my own fucking food? Like, what are you, supposed to be my fucking father or something? Like, I can buy my own fucking meal, thank you. I appreciate it because there's one thing to have somebody do it because they're just sharing with you a sentiment of, gratitude or generosity, But it's another thing to just say, oh, he can't do it himself, I'll do it for him.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need your fucking charity. Well, imagine we start telling women, listen, you guys, you can't go on dates. Guys are going to rape you. Guys are going to this. Guys are going to that. At some point, any strong woman will look at you and go, how about I fucking determine what I'm going to do with my life? How about I worry about that and you don't tell me what the fuck to do? So that's where a lot of this falls that I think a lot of people misunderstand, is that this is somehow, absolving the attacker of responsibility and consequence. Not at all. We're just not ignoring the power of the person who was attacked and how they had the power to not only probably avoid that situation through different decision making, but also avoid it from happening in the future, right?
100%.
So Rory says, not emotional, but I don't necessarily agree that all things that should be known can always be known ahead of time. Your example of Pulse falls into that category. Not sure those people lived in a world at that point where that was a possibility, knowledge someone would have had in order to make a decision to avoid that. Okay, so a couple of different things. Knowing that that's going to happen is different from knowing that it's possible to happen.
Yeah, big difference.
Concealed carry permit holders, like guys that are running pistols, concealed. Do they know something's going to happen? Of course not. But they know it's a possibility, and they know, being that the possibility of something arising where they're going to be better off with their firearm is there, they do the necessary preparations in order to do it. Now, chances are, if you're a concealed carry permit holder, 99.9% of the time, you're going to walk outside and have absolutely no need to carry your firearm. Yet, for some reason, we all still validate the logic that leads us to carry one. It's not about knowing the future. It's about acknowledging coming to terms with and preparing for the effects that our decisions have on the probabilities of our lives, So those, and by the way, if somebody's being called emotional, it's important to note it's not an insult, to see, ironically, to see being called emotional as being an insult is emotional, right?
True.
All right. So, so I think I answered that.
Yeah, 100%.
On time. We all die because of too weak to live. Someday we'll all be too weak. Two on time. You got in here a little late. I did a whole piece on that. That I was saying, I used your phrase and described that. But absolutely.
100%. Too weak to live.
And, here's another thing. If you can't see what's going to happen, that is one of the definitions of being too weak. So now, also, there is a certain point where we're all going to be too weak, right? We're all going to die. When you die, you're too weak to live. So avoiding, the label of weakness or describing something as being weak because there's an insult, stigma attached to it, is weak, number one, but it's ineffective, right? We limit our language and we limit our ability to sort of define what's happening when we avoid these terms. So if you can't see what's going on, it's because you're too weak. It's not because you're a bad person. It's not because you necessarily made bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
Somebody may walk into the bank when you're standing online tomorrow and shoot you in the back of the fucking head. You might not have ever seen him, heard him, been aware at all. Everything will be there, and then nothing will be there, right? Nope. And you have no idea what the fuck happened. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person because that happened. But it certainly meant that you were too weak to avoid that from happening.
That is correct.
There's a certain point in the timeline where your strength can no longer save you, right? And I think maybe that's a way to look at it, where, we've had decisions that we could have made much earlier on at our level of strength to avoid these things from happening. But you pass a certain threshold where now you are at the mercy of somebody else's decision-making process. So to acknowledge where that threshold is to acknowledge where you are now too weak to have a choice, right? So,
yeah.
So if you say, the woman who gets raped, you say, oh, well, if she never went out with the guy, she wouldn't have been raped. So her power could have had her make that decision and avoid it. Then you say, yeah, well, she could have gone out with him, but she couldn't have, if she didn't drink, she wouldn't have gotten raped. Well, she had the power to make a decision there. Well, if she went out with him, had a drink, but didn't let him drive her home, she wouldn't have gotten raped. So she could have made a decision there that would have avoided it. But if she went out with him, drank, was in his car, agreed to get a nightcap at his house before they called it a night, there's a certain point where now she's not strong enough to avoid his decision-making process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
There's a certain point where, but now let's say, well, she did all that. That's why she was, she got to the point where she was too weak to make the decisions that trumped his decisions. Well, now we take that same scenario and you give her a gun. You give her a blade. You train her on how to use a blade. You have her with a fucking PSD following her, personal security deal following her, and the guy is completely unaware of it. There are ways to increase her strength so that she still has a decision-making process that's strong enough to influence events much closer to where that point of no return occurs. Right? So,
100%.
When I'm looking at at how people live their lives, there are two things that need to happen, where this specifically is concerned. Number one, it's acknowledging the effect of our decisions and what probability is involved in the decisions we're making. Where we're turning at these different forks in the road, seeing these forks in the road. But also the part of it is you want to increase your strength and your power so that your decision-making process lasts much longer towards that summit where the conflict actually occurs. All right?
Yeah.
When you look at the SIOC concept of be the feeder, what is the term be the feeder? If not, be so strong that you're the one who's always making the decision that matters.
Yeah, you're in control.
Like I could be strong, powerful, have money, have weapons, have an army, have this, have that. If I get into a swimming tank with a shark, I'm dead. Why? Because all that strength, whatever, I made one decision and put myself in a situation where I was not strong enough to make my decisions matter. Well, there I go. Now I'm at the discretion of something else's decision-making process, right? So it allows us to navigate life as powerfully as we can navigate it. Now, the problem is that if you're a little bitch, right? If you're a tall glass of bitch, then your power is so insignificant, it is so low, that chances are you will never be able to live any life of consequence because, or while maintaining this, because you are too weak to have your decisions matter in almost every situation.
Yeah. You have the
And
mercy.
if you don't do what's necessary, like one of the basic premises, the impetuses for creating the Pressure Project was, I want you guys to be as strong as possible. The stuff we do behind the scenes in the Warrior Project is designed in basically these two things. It's number one, being able to empower you enough to look at the world and see it for what it is, to see the power in your decisions and how there's accountability a lot of times in your situations, which is a good thing because it means we made the decision to get there, which means we can make decisions to get out of there. Number one, but number two, making us as strong as possible so that we can make the most powerful decisions and have them actually matter, right? So that is what, that is what we're talking about when we talk about choice, decision-making, and as soon as somebody says they don't have a choice, that is where their power ends, right? Yep. Read 29 again, verbatim. When and where you feel you no longer have a choice is a good measure of where your power is. So that was 29.
29. And last but not least, for today.
Yeah, so there's going to be a shitload more of these. So this is number 30.
30.
Oh, this is a good one. Pat, read it.
Ready. Pick a fight if you've never had one.
Pick a fight if you've never had one. So, who was I talking to the other day? It's probably a student. I don't talk to that many people. So it's probably a student. It might have been you. It might have been Anthony. Might have been one of my kids. But I was talking about how we all know the insult, right, or the assessment of a man. This guy, he looks like somebody who's never been punched in the face.
Yep.
Think about that for a second. If we all accept that there is this assessment of an individual that describes the negative nature of being a grown man who's never been punched in the face, then logically we would assume that if we've never been punched in the face, we should go find a way to go through that experience.
Yeah.
So one of the great things about childhood, right, or what childhood once was in society, still is in nature.
Once was.
It is a preparation for life. It is a preparation for life in the sense that it allows you to learn all of the lessons that will serve you well as an adult, but learn them at a child's level of consequence.
Exactly.
So, when you tell your son to stand up to the bully in school and punch him in the face, there is a maximum amount of risk involved in those events transpiring. When the guy goes to bully him on the train station when he's 35, and he goes for the first time to stand up to the bully, he might get shot.
Yep.
Now, if he's developed no understanding of how these events unfold because he's never been exposed to it, well, then what winds up happening is that he learns the lessons that children learn, but in the world of adult consequence.
Yeah.
If you've never been in a fight, go and pick one. Because fighting and being in a situation where you are uncomfortable, you are exposed to violence, you are vulnerable physically, there is an inherent risk that is beyond your control, teaches you and shares with you wisdom that you cannot get otherwise. The easy way to validate that is to just remind everybody, we all know somebody right now, if we thought about it, somebody like this guy's never been punched in the face. And we also know for some reason, maybe we've never articulated it to ourselves, but that is a bad thing. So if you've never been in a fight, go and pick one. Doesn't mean you have to win. Doesn't mean listen, if you get your ass kicked, it was a fail. The whole thing is we fight because we have reasons to fight. We don't fight because we think we're going to win. That's a coward's way to think. That's a coward's way to operate. There are certain reasons that I have for doing violence against somebody. But at no point is the decision to do violence or not to do violence based on whether I think I can get away with it, whether or not I think I can win. That is not how warriors fight. Warriors fight on the principles and values that they've sworn an oath to that are based in the protection and the survival of their tribe. So if you've never been in a fight, go and pick one. Why? Because fighting will teach you some shit. I remember
I know who you are.
I remember a friend of mine talking about, potentially doing something and being locked up for it. And he made the observation. He said, sometimes, things are worth going to jail. You can learn a lot in jail. And the thing is, listen, there's power to be had everywhere. But avoiding a fight because of the violence, you are never going to develop into a fully adult male, right? Mark Ripito says that an adult human male is 200 pounds, right? So add to that list, if I can, the MC addendum, and has also had a fight, if you've never fought before and you're not a retard and you're not a child, what the fuck are you doing? I was telling a story the other day. Were you there when I was talking about second grade?
No.
I was walking around with my good buddy in second grade, picking fights with everybody.
Oh, you said you wanted to be the toughest second grader on the planet?
I wanted to be the champion, right?
Champions, yes.
Now, second grade, I was 7 years old. This was Our Lady of Refuge. Right? I went to Catholic school.
This is a great name.
In the Bronx, Our Lady of Refuge. And I was with my buddy Alfred, his name was. A little Puerto Rican kid with big ears. And Alfred and I were walking around, and I was challenging every boy in the second grade to a fight. And the reason is I wanted to be the champion. Whatever the fuck that meant. By the way, at that time in my life, I had nothing but ninja posters up. I used to try and go to Catholic school wearing tabby boots. The ninja boots with the 2 toes. I'd have the nuns tell me, Justin, you can't wear – these aren't shoes. I'm like, little do you know, I'll murder everybody with these shoes. And nobody will hear me. It's fucking retarded. But my earliest memories had me, sort of value, or I remember valuing, what fighting did. Now, obviously, there is a line that I may have crossed over, at one point where it became dysfunctional. But somebody who's never fought before, I've said it before here on the podcast. I could always tell when somebody's never been in a fight when they join my academy. When I grab them, or I see them grab for the first time, and they sort of wilt, as opposed to fortifying their stance. Like, imagine somebody was going to push you, and you saw them about to push you, and you didn't want to fall, and they were just going to nudge you. Not that they're going to try and push you over, but they're just going to push you to nudge you. You would widen your stance, you sit in your stance a little bit, you brace yourself, so when they pushed you, you were still good. But when somebody's never actually had that physical interaction, when they get pushed, they fall. So
yeah,
things in the school is you would have people grabbed, and when they're grabbed, the first thing they do is just, wilt. You'll have other people who have never trained a day in their life, but maybe grew up, with a relationship with violence and a relationship with the physicality of life. You grab them and they brace themselves, because they're ready and they're familiar with this, and that's why number 30 is pick a fight if you've never had one. So, man, that was
solid.
That was a good addition to the list. I'll be honest, a lot of the feedback I'm getting, people love the fucking man codes. They love the man code. So it's pretty cool.
Man codes are solid.
We're at 2:41 right now by my time. A couple of reminders for those of you listening from Friday to Tuesday. What I'm doing is for the 4th of July, because I'm a patriotic American, but it also applies to the rest of you around the world.
True.
That's a little bit of the merchant hypocrisy. It's just inherent in making a living doing cool shit. Instead of $4.97 for the year, it's going to be $2.97. We're going to have a discount code that's going to go out to the mailing list. If you have ever waited for the barrier of entry to become a member of the Warrior Project to lessen, this is a very short-term opportunity I'm doing for you. I'm providing for you guys to do that. Now, if you're already a member, I'll still let you do it and add a year to your membership if you want. I don't want to remove the opportunity to benefit from you guys. When you guys do join, because I'm anticipating a whole bunch of people doing so, or you really should, but if you want to become a member once you're a member of the Warrior Project, you're also allowed into the private Facebook group, the Warrior Project Tribe. And there's so much more content there that's for members only. But you have to send a message out to myself or to Pat, and we can approve your membership or your inclusion in that Facebook page. So from Friday to Tuesday, a year of the Warrior Project, usually $4.97. I'm knocking $200 off, so it's going to be $2.97 just for that time. I remember a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, I ran a sale on the power programs where instead of 40, what was it?
For Father's Day.
And instead of $47, it was only $20. And people thought like that was going to be the price. It's like, no, the price is $47. But I gave you guys the opportunity. A shit ton of people took advantage of it. But of course, there were people the next day, looking for that price, as there always is. And I'm a man of my word. It's like, hey, I would like to give you the discount, but I wouldn't want you to make me a liar, right? And I said this is the end, so it's the end. But
give your shot. Do it.
But you guys will get more announcements where that's concerned. I think we're good. Anything else, Pat, you can think of?
That's it. Solid.
All right, good. Solid. Thank you guys for watching. Those of you that are listening on the podcast, I appreciate you guys listening. These shows are not very short. They're pretty long, extensive, but as you can see by today's show, they're always full of power. But I appreciate you guys for listening. Check us out. We're here every Wednesday on Pressure Project Radio from 12 to 3 Eastern Standard Time. Also, remember the website is thepressureproject.com. Our contact email is info@thepressureproject.com. And our membership site, The Warrior Project, is at thewarriorproject.com. Check it out. Thank you, guys. Pat and I signing off. As always, thank you. And pressure to power.